Hello, everyone. Good morning. Hoping everyone is feeling good, feeling amazing, feeling great, feeling spectacular, feeling all of the good blessings that we can possibly feel at one moment in time. I have my candle lit. I have some books to read from today. And I, too, myself, am trying to be in better spirits. Here we are in October, the year of our Lord 2020, and it has been a rough ride for many of us, probably for most of us. And the question I have today is, who out there does not believe in the beneficial effects of diversity? I suppose I'll start with etiquette, with protocol, and ask that question to Mr. Donald J. Trump, if he might just so happen to be listening and paying attention. And I asked that question in the midst of what we're probably aware of, people wondering for years and now wondering continuously at the height of whether he actually is a stout person in agreement with white supremacy, with racism. Let's break those down. Because those of us that believe in Black power obviously realize that there is a correlation. However, because of America's ugliest, worst, most foul, most disgusting sin, thank you, Reverend Dr. Robert Turner, its ugliest sin, as he points out, of slavery, and so many other terrible things that still go on in this country and for the most part throughout the world in terms of skin color and blackness, we have to be honest with ourselves, to the white people that we love, myself included, and say that white supremacy is not in correlation, in all fairness of the term, to Black power. Black power, if I'm not mistaken, derived short time after slavery, Reconstruction, and they felt that it was a necessary tool trans forward into a whole century later, obviously after the height of the so-called quote-unquote new civil rights movement of the 60s and the assassinations of so many of our wonderful leaders with the Black Panther Party. We see that there is a difference. I am the first person to hop on board and try to hear all sides and give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I was not a fan, but I remember seeing what I hoped to see in his presidency from now until January, when he's removed by Mr. Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Joe Biden, and I think I got that right, incorporate more diversity and to be more sensitive to the needs of people like myself whose skin is dark. Many of us have certain ancestry that we probably understand and don't turn a deaf ear. And we all just want the benefits of inclusion, the benefits of empathy. And the show Apprentice, in my opinion, from what I could see, the cast was a very diverse cast. His cabinet is not so much. Based on what we see in the media, based on what we see on social media, news outlets, it does not appear to be that way. But it breaks my heart to think that the president is a white supremacist or a racist because of the ugly sin of slavery. I was a student at Auburn University, Montgomery, and one of the best professors I ever had in my life, college, high school, elementary, preschool, among my top 5 was a guy by the name of Dr. Duarte. And the class that I took from him, I believe I took just one class from him. It might have been 2 classes, but I know I took a class entitled Managing Diversity. And in that class, we had to use a formula that gave us the experiment database that we were using. Not the database, but the data group that we were using was people who had been hired by the state of Alabama. If I'm not mistaken, it was the state of Alabama. It might have been another state, but I'm pretty sure it was the state of Alabama. And the racial disparity of state employees, this was a state employees, and I'm not sure if it was in the 70s, the 80s, or the 90s. And the reason I wonder that is because there seems to be, based on what my naked eye can see, a number of people who are employed by the state as of today, as of even at that time, around 2006, when I was pregnant with my daughter, who are not Caucasian, were not white, who are of a different ethnic group, meaning that the diversity is there. So he more than likely did include the time period. I believe it was the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. But that information that we came across in that class and that formula that we used, that was not the easiest thing in the world to figure out, was very depressing. So as we continue to go on about our lives and pay attention and become more and more and more informed about the world, about our local neighborhoods, about our places that we live, close and near and far, let us continue to try as best as we can in our close relationships to do better, to have each other's backs, to be there for each other. We're going to dip a little into today, into some things that, in combination with what I just said already, is going to may have some people looking at me kind of, okay, Remedies, really? And I just want you all to hear me out. I'm coming from, the first reading today is from Joel Osteen, Become a Better You. Second time reading from this. It's been a while. It's been about a month since the last time. And today, from page 245, under the section, Keep Yourself Happy. God has not called you to be unhappy simply to keep someone else happy. God has not called you to be unhappy simply to keep somebody else happy. If you are in a relationship where you do the majority of the giving and always encourage or rescue the other person, that is a clear sign that something is out of balance. You've become a crutch, And unless you make some changes, the relationship will continue to flounder. You must take a stand. You can do it in love, but you need to go to that person and say, I love you, but I'm not going to allow you to keep dumping your problems on me and making my life miserable. I'm not going to let you keep draining all my time and energy. You have to take responsibility and learn to keep yourself happy. Just bear with me. Second point of reading comes from the African American Literature book on page 161, A Letter to Thomas Jefferson from Benjamin Banneker. Here, sir, was a time in which your tender feelings for yourselves had engaged you thus to declare you were then impressed with proper ideas of the great valuation of liberty and the free possession of those blessings to which you were entitled by nature. But, sir, how pitiable is it to reflect that although you were so fully convinced of the benevolence of the Father of mankind and of his equal and impartial distribution of those rights and privileges which he had conferred upon them, that you should at the same time counteract his mercies in detaining by fraud and violence so numerous a part of my brethren under groaning captivity and cruel oppression, that you should at the same time be found guilty of that most criminal act which you professedly detested in others with respect to yourselves. Sir, I suppose that your knowledge of the situation of my brethren is too extensive to need a recital here. Neither shall I presume to prescribe methods by which they may be relieved otherwise than by recommending to you all others to wean yourselves from those narrow prejudices which you have imbibed with respect to them, and as Job proposed to his friends, put your souls in their souls' stead. 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 Thus shall your hearts be enlarged with kindness and benevolence towards them, and thus shall you need neither the direction of myself or others in what manner to proceed herein. What in the world do those two pieces that I just read have in common with the topic I'm speaking? What I've realized being bipolar and literally crawling before in a supermarket at one of my lowest points, that people who believe in the rigid corners of white supremacy, unfortunately also known as slavery, bigotry, murder, so many other terrible things in relation to that, or vice versa, you have to meet them where they are. So today, I'm starting really, really, really simple. And I hope that it is understood where I'm coming from. Sometimes it really is just that simple. Now, in 2020, since slavery is outlawed, and I hate to just throw that term around and force my listening audience to grab onto it and make a relation. But essentially, because this is a drastic situation. Anyone who thinks in terms of white supremacy or racism as okay is in a drastic need of some kind of divine intervention. My opinion. It's an illness. It's an illness of the mind. It's a sickness. It's a thwarted type of way to think. It's not thinking rationally or soundly or at all. Take love out the picture of whatever that is right now. But just rationally thinking, it is not okay to have those types of thoughts. And unfortunately, in my opinion, I believe that not necessarily just because of our forefathers and our ancestors, but because we still have a difficult time Obviously, reparations needed, systemic racism, systemic violence through racism, racial disparities, racial discrimination. All of this stuff continues to happen because we have not, in my opinion, gotten to the root of it. That's why I uphold people like Cornell Brooks, people like my brother, people like Sean King, people like Sidney Robbins, people like Denzel Washington, even people like Odell Beckham Jr., who are saying, look, for the first time, or whatever time it is in his life, vote. Barack Obama, all day, every day. Don't boo, vote. Because it is really not simple at all, but it really is simple. Thank you, my sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha. And I say that because self-love has a lot to do with it. And when I say self-love, I'm not coming from some perspective of it's a choice to be enslaved. I'm saying that for my white brothers and sisters out there who I love so very much, if we truly love ourselves, if we truly see God in us, there will be no reason to not extend that love that we are sure of that we have in ourselves to everyone, to people like me, black people. I just want to take a moment to let that ooze until I got the candles burning, to let that ooze into our spirits. Self-love. So on today, before we dare ask someone, it really is just as grossly and insanely and disgustingly simple to pick up this pencil or scratch our back or sweep the floor or be our friend or work in our jobs. Look at ourselves and see how much would we want to be paid. What credit rating would we want to receive? What place in the community would we want to live? What job would we want to have? And then apply it because we are our brothers and sisters keepers to someone else. Diversity. I did a little research before I went live and I saw that Biden has been instrumental in the Special Olympics, which is very dear to me because that is one of the heightening forms of diversity. Obviously, he has picked a black woman as a vice presidential running mate. Obviously, it was real, in my opinion, every time I saw them on the screen. He worked under the fold of the presidency of a black man. Him being much older, his elder, and a white man, growing up in the time he grew up after having been a senator himself. You know, that is pretty damn remarkable. And I want to continue to ask everyone as they give me the benefit of the doubt to really say, okay, is he really this way, Mr. Trump? And I vote Democrat all day. I will be supporting Joe Biden. And at the same time, as a citizen of America, I am concerned about everyone, obviously, and especially those in high offices such as the presidency, such as Mr. Donald Trump. So as we simmer back down from all of that high-end, wacky, weird, but y'all know that was some truth, some kind of way. From Daniel Steele again, One Day at a Time. From page 237. And I'll conclude this video with this. He rushed into the bathroom to shower and shave, and he emerged a few minutes later, freshly shaven with wet hair, buttoning an impeccable white shirt. He put on black slacks, a black cashmere blazer, and black alligator loafers, and while he was dressing, she put on the black cocktail dress. It was both sexy and demure, just low enough to reveal a hint of cleavage, but covered enough to be discreet. She looked so beautiful, she took his breath away, and they stood admiring each other with a look of pleasure. It was the first night they were going out in public together in Leslie's world. When they got there, it was a palatial mansion and there were valet parkers. It was obviously a bigger party than they'd expected, but there were a lot of big-name stars associated with the film. There were no paparazzi outside, and Leslie whisked her in, relieved that there weren't, and a moment later they were standing in a marble hallway with a grand staircase and an art collection worthy of the Louvre. A crowd of people stood among beautiful antiques and priceless art. The producer greeted them warmly and kissed Coco's cheek. "I've heard a lot about you," he said, smiling warmly at her. "I knew your father. He was my agent for many years. I know your mother and sister, too. You come from a bloodline of Hollywood legends, my dear." As he said it, Leslie smiled at a spectacular-looking woman who approached them, and Coco realized instantly who she was. Let's have a good day.